Freedom fighters have vowed to make sure Tshwane Mayor Solly Msimanga is out. Both the ANC and the EFF will table a no-confidence motion against Msimanga this week. Msimanga is now set to address the media. There he is. Let's take a listen now.
Corruption by all means necessary. We have seen where they went a week before calling for the head of the city manager, Dr. Musola, and then when they came to council, then singing again, we are not after Dr. Musola, we are after Solly Msimanga. So that is something that needs to be questioned as to what is the real motive behind that. But anyway, we'll get to that, more of that in a moment. I want to put it on record that the DA, and I must say that the other parties that have assisted us in forming this coalition government are still not deterred in governing to the highest possible standards and remain steadfast in our commitment to rooting out corruption and ensuring that we uphold the highest possible standard of governance. In line with the commitment on the 22nd of August 2018, I undertook as the City of Tshwane Mayor to suspend the city manager, Dr. Musola. The decision was necessitated by the allegations of serious misconduct against Musola. The allegations made by the whistleblowers over a period of time pointed out similarly to serious irregularities in the procurement of project management services. Now, I must highlight, and as I've said to council, we are not calling for anybody's guilt here. We are saying investigate so that we are able to then get to the bottom of this. In March 2018, I received a legal advice to investigate the accounts of the whistleblowers. By the time these allegations also surfaced in Sunday Times on the 12th of August 2018, I had already issued Dr. Musola with a set of detailed questions about the procurement processes as well as the legal and financial risks posed by the contract so as to allow the city manager an opportunity to give an explanation. This was in the interest of fairness to the city manager. No one is being persecuted here, as I've said, or found guilty of anything. While applying my mind, certain evidence also emerged that it became apparent that an independent investigation needed to be conducted in order to establish all the facts in this matter. So we decided that we are going to not leave it to the ANC to continue making statements of half-truths of what is happening. We decided to take it to council because we've shown time and time again that we are not hiding anything. When the issues of appointments came up, we decided to act on it. We investigated the whole debacle, and we've actually even said to the city manager, let's look into the appointments and how everything had been done. When this issue came up again of possible maladministration or allegations of corruption, we decided that we were going to take it to council because there's nothing to be hidden, and therefore if Dr. Musola will be found innocent, then the investigation will clear him. But what we are seeing is tactics now to try and derail that particular process, which is very much questionable. The ANC only found out about the matter, as I was highlighting, on Sunday in the Sunday Times and reacted with breathtaking opportunism. The regional chairperson of the ANC in Tshwane, Dr. Mayepa, almost immediately made the ridiculous claims that all the tenders above 200,000 are approved by the mayoral committee, revealing his arrogance of basic provisions of Municipal Management Act, of Municipal Finance Management Act. And then that should pose a question. So if his belief is that they need to be involved as politicians into the procurement process, the question is, what have they been doing all along? We're sitting with a number of issues here. This same building that we find ourselves in. Billions of rand have gone into the same building. We were supposed to build 8-story building with the amount of money that we've paid. And look where we are right now. The Pay with Smart Meter contract, 2 billion rand worth of money and plus, which we had to take on review, had to be taken to court because of the involvement of politicians. And I will go on and on this particular matter here. Section 117 of the Act prohibits all councillors, including the executive mayor and members of the mayoral committee, from participating in committees that evaluate or approve tenders. Section 118 prohibits anyone from interfering with the tender processes. His comments only underscores the obvious reality that the ANC, the kind of interference that the tender processes is the way they've been dealing with this practice before, leaves much to be desired. Under the DA-led government, oversight over tender processes is exercised by monthly and quarterly supply chain management reports, which are meant to include details about tenders, service providers, and contract amounts. The ANC also alleged that the funds have been embezzled to fund the DA election campaign. I've asked, and I would like to challenge, let them put a shred of evidence to back up their claims that any kind of cent have gone towards the DA's campaign strategy. You see, this is a political grandstanding of great magnitude. They've got nothing, that they can use to then back their claims. And I challenge Maepa to put any kind of evidence whatsoever to show that money has gone towards the DA and the DA's election. Of course, we understand and we know that this is a campaign also that is aimed at derailing my standing as the provincial candidate. But those are things that we will deal with at a later stage. Ours now is to set up the record straight and ensure that we come out of here with the public and certainly the media understanding what has taken place. Under the DA-led administration, oversight of tenders and processes will continue to happen. The ANC also alleged that the funds have been embezzled, as I said, towards funding our campaign, failing to produce a shred of evidence because it is pertinent nonsense. Of course, the ignorance of the fact that the legacy of the corruption and mismanagement in Tshwane, including the 2 billion rand deficit which we inherited, that thanks to the ever-capable MMC for Finance, Marlies Fourie, we have been able to turn that particular situation around. We want to also put it under a strict record to say that this DA-led administration will ensure that if there is any wrongdoing that is ever to be found relating to tender corruption, we'll make sure that that is taken for judicial review. After they had called on for action against Dr. Musula and voted in favor on issuing him with a suspension notice, the ANC made an apparent about U-turn, intimating that there has been a conspiracy against Dr. Musula. If there's bipolar, this is a clear definition of bipolar that we have seen in the recent times. The ANC also made numerous accusations against the MMC of Corporate and Shared Services, Councillor Sile Brink, and the Finance MMC, Councillor Marlies Fourie. The accusation against the MMC Brink were unrelated to the Glad Africa issue and are also baseless. Nothing in there seems to be talking about what we were discussing on the day. So it was a day of trying to confuse as much issues as you possibly can to ensure that at the end of the day we don't get to the bottom of what we intended on doing. MMC Fourie, who has supported me in achieving the Tshwane's financial recovery plan, was also blamed for doing her job, asking pertinent questions about a procurement contract that, or the project management contract that had been procured in the city. The challenge here of the ANC stands, if it can provide any evidence of corruption, they must produce the proof and lay the necessary charges at the South African Police Services. That includes any information that they might have in their disposal to show that there is corruption that has been committed. And that also should include the corruption that was committed during their own term of office here in the city of Tshwane from 2000 to 2016. It is hypocritical of the ANC to pursue this particular matter with such vigor when they have been so silent on the matters of their own current caucus, who had been implicated in the multi-billion rand corruption scandals during their tenure in office. As for the contract that is under question and that of any other project management service provider, if any irregularities is confirmed by an independent investigation, the DA-led government will take the contract on judicial review, and we have done so in many of the other contracts that we have found under the ANC government. I've given you a number of examples, including that of the smart meter contract, including that we are now taking on the fleet contract of the city of Tshwane, and so on and so forth. So there's quite a number of those. Now let's talk to the issues of what we inherited or what we started working with when it comes to the issue of the project management unit. Now, during the 2017, the city manager made recommendations to the mayoral committee about the establishment of a project management unit. It was based on the diminishing ability of the cities to manage its capital projects, part of the poor governance capacity inherited from the ANC. The idea was to build an internal capacity of the city to ensure effective project management and better value for money. Let me break it down what we mean. So when we came in, the Auditor General says you have over 10 billion rand of projects that either have been completed, not handed over back to the city. You have projects that are not completed that have run out of money. You have projects that are still have money, not completed, but are stalling because of the issues of the community preventing the projects from continuing, or projects that really have to be abandoned because they have been from the project management perspective, from the onset, the conceptualization of that has been wrong. So the Auditor General said these will forever be findings unless if you are able to then correct that. We then said to the city manager, what is then the best possible way that we'll be able to deal with this? The city manager said to us, well, we don't have the internal capacity for us to be able to then deal with this kind of projects. Therefore, the best thing that we now need to do is to make sure that we are able to then outsource the project management of these, and to ensure that when you are doing that, you are also able to then at the same time begin to build capacity, so that you then have capacity in the relevant departments going forward. So we looked at over 1,400 projects that the Auditor General referred to in his report, and we said we needed to make sure that this is corrected. Documents of which will be provided to you. One of the documents that the ANC selectively uses without giving a shred of evidence to say that all information had been shared or has been shared with ourselves, we'll make sure that that document is then provided to yourself. In November 2017, I was made aware of a panel of service providers that have been appointed to assist the project management unit, but no name of any individual service provider was provided by the city manager. The city manager never reported on contract amounts, percentage or limits or detailed work specifications. At the time, the officials who have been asked to be protected raised concerns about service level agreements that were asked to approve by the city manager. The officials feared that the service level agreement might be biased against the city. They were advised to put their concerns in writing to the city manager. At this time, there were no concrete allegations or tender rigging, and my office had not been furnished with the adverse legal and financial comments that had apparently been rendered prior to the award of the tender. Furthermore, several senior officials who raised concerns about the legality and the impact of the tender allegedly that they were threatened and intimidated by the city manager. It is important to remember that this remains an obligation upon us to protect the whistleblowers from occupational detriment as required under the Protection Disclosure Act. So again, I must re-emphasize, this remains allegations, and this is why we've called for investigation, so that all of these things can indeed be put to light. In March 2018, I was furnished with a copy of a legal opinion and the account of the whistleblower, suggesting that the city manager had ignored the legal advice in appointing the project management service providers. By this time, nothing had been said or cited in the supply chain management report about the appointment of the project management service providers. This is when I sought legal advice to investigate the allegations as being made by the whistleblowers. At about the same time, this MMC4E asked in her own capacity as the MMC for Finance questions from the chief to the Chief Financial Officer Uma Banda about the appointment of the project management service providers. At the time, she was acting as the executive mayor, but also still exercising her ordinary oversight role over supply chain management issues as the finance MMC. When Dr. Musola came to hear of MMC for his queries, he responded with an unusual hostility. In an email, he accused her of conducting an illegal investigation and insisted on being afforded the benefit of rule of natural justice. That is something that we did. We said, well, we will compile a number of questions, and then we will then ask you to then be able to explain to us indeed what has been happening there. The appointment of the panel of project management service providers was eventually reported by the city manager to MECO and to council in May 2018. But by then, the matter was already under investigation. The third quarter supply chain management report indicated no contract price, no percentage or limit or detailed work specifications. Neither was a service provider named in the report. The following was contained in addendum to the report, which will also make sure that it's available to yourself. I quote, EXCO, MECO, and Council attention is also drawn to the Regulation 32 procurement of services under contract by another organ of state as follows in the September 2017 and noted reported during the period, close quote. Now the track record of our DA-led administration shows how hard we have worked to get the Tshwane back on track. It shows how much we have put in place, and the track record will indeed speak for itself. And whatever happens on Thursday, history will indeed judge us accordingly. We have fought very much to combat and expose corruption and maladministration, and we've begun to ensure that better service delivery is delivered to the people. To date, we have been able to stabilize the city of Tshwane's finances. It must also be remembered that the city was also on the brink of bankruptcy when we took over. By strengthening controls over supply chain processes, slashing unauthorized and unnecessary expenditure, and extricating the city from unlawful and expensive contracts which benefited the politically connected that was under the administration of the ANC. This, as I said before, in particular respect of the biggest single item of ANC corruption in local government history, the Peo Smart Meter contract valued at over 2 billion rand. The DA-led administration, together with the civil society, were successful in convincing the courts to set aside and bringing us closer to providing affordable electricity to our people. Other contracts entered into the ANC maladministration that the Msimanga administration currently challenged, including the West Capital project. Now, you cannot do anything relating to Shuart Park because of the contract that the city finds itself in under the ANC administration. What happened is that if you move now from Shuart Park all the way to Atteridgeville, every piece of land, the grave, Maravastad precinct there, the fresh produce market, all have been signed over to one company. Now we want to develop there. We cannot do that because of the corruption that has taken place. And all of this at the rate of what? 1 rand a year.
Yeah, something like that.
They're paying 1 rand a year. And these are some of the contracts that we find ourselves in, and we now need to make sure that we correct those. We've spoken about the fleet contract that also has been taken under review. Let's not forget the broadband contract, valued at several billions of rands, that we are also now dealing with. Additionally, when the DA assumed office in Tshwane, we were astonished to find that the ANC had made approximately 900 political appointments in the office of the executive mayor, all drawing salaries from the city, which have now been slashed. We sold the mayoral mansion for 5.1 billion rand in order to build houses for the disadvantaged. We've banned the blue lights. We've continued to engage with communities. We've increased quadrupled the amount of maintenance budget that that has been available to ensure that services and better maintenance is given to the people of Tshwane going forward. We reformed the expanded public works program selection and recruitment process, ensuring that it's a fair and transparent system that we now employ instead of the crony system that has been put in place. The random selection process via lottery system implemented by our DA-led administration gives everyone, and not just the politically connected, an opportunity to benefit from the program. We allocated 137.2 million rands towards the EPWP initiatives this financial year. This will lead to more jobs and skills for the unemployed. The city's health department is currently funding the Department of Home Medicine at the University of Pretoria with development of evidence-based community-oriented substance use program, what we call COSUP. To date, over 2,000 people have benefited and enrolled on the COSUP program, and more than 12,000 follow-up visits were conducted to intensify the interventions. This excludes people who are reached through awareness and education campaign. It is estimated that we have reached over 40,000 people through the outreach program that we have started. Our 24-hour call center also ensures that we are able to reach out, and we have people that reach out to us on a 24-hour basis. The Hope Line, as we call it, takes calls and refers callers for assistance. Hope Line is one of our 5 response interventions to ensure that we fight the scourge of drugs and substance abuse. And I'm pleased to announce that since the launch of the Hope Line, the City of Tshwane has registered increasing number of calls and dealt with all the pleas for people who are seeking for help and the families that are affected therefore. These are some of just the many good stories and successes that can be told by the DA-led administration, which is here to serve the people of Tshwane. And at this point in time, I also want to say thank you to those that have formed the government with us. We want to say thank you to the ACDP. We want to say thank you to COPE. And also we want to say thank you to the Freedom Front, who have stood by us and who continue to stand by us. Let's come up to now the issue of the motion of no confidence. I think Thursday's motions of no confidence in me is impeccably inexplainable, if I may call it that. Because since my action has shown my administration's stance on issues of allegations of corruption and wrongdoing, and my seriousness in acting against possible corruption that is there. So I've taken a stance to say that we need to make sure that we investigate and deal with allegations and make sure that we remain an accountable government. So why a motion of no confidence when somebody has decided to act is now being put up? Serious questions need to be asked about the sponsors of the motion, appreciating that no one is being accused of anything. Why are they resisting scrutiny and accountability in terms of the project management unit that has been put together? Why is there now a question, while we are now saying that there needs to be a further investigation into who was responsible if there is any wrongdoing? Now, if there's no wrongdoing, then the investigation will tell us that there is no wrongdoing. But why then derail? Why then get to suspend or want somebody who's calling for the action that you've been calling for to be then removed from office? Unless, if indeed, there is something to be hidden here. And why are they now colluding to ensure that the ANC gets to get into power via the back door? The question is this here. What is the game plan? We'll tell you what the game plan is. Either somebody gets elected from the opposition to lead the opposition, or then they want to push that there is no mayor in place so that it gets to a point where the province, which is ANC, gets to then assume government. So that is the real reason why all these things are being done here. Because if it's indeed about accountability, here we are. We're demonstrating accountability by putting everything on the table and ensuring that we're calling for investigation to take place. This aversion to clean and accountable governance was only displayed in Nelson Mandela Bay yesterday, where again the EFF colluded with the ANC to take power from the DA-led coalition, and only strengthening my call to have the matter urgently and independently investigated. The latest political tactics by the ANC calling for fresh elections is fundamentally undemocratic, considering that the people of Tshwane in the 2016 local government elections already elected a government of their choice and voted the ANC out of power. Granted, not with a clear majority, but they told them, we don't want you in power anymore. The residents of Tshwane gave a mandate for the DA and other opposition parties to form a coalition government to better govern the city and to deliver quality services to its residents. The ANC has nothing more than a track record of bad governance and corruption to show for the time in governing Tshwane. If the EFF choose to collude with the ANC in their motion of no confidence, it will be a clear demonstration that they support and stand by corruption and wrongdoing. I stand undeterred by the motion of no confidence. I will face it, as I've faced so many challenges in the past. I will uncover wrongdoing and take action without fear or favor, a practice which is alien to the ANC, which has built itself on graft and corruption. While the ANC and the EFF attempts to destabilize the legitimate and democratically established government in our metros, we will continue to do our work of bringing tangible change to the people of Tshwane until such time as that changes. That is the end of the statement. I will then allow at this point in time, questions, if there are any questions, to clarify the matter. Sam?
Mayor, you say that the EFF wants to put the ANC through the back door in the governance in Tshwane. Many may argue that you yourself got into the seat that you are sitting right now through the back door with a deal that you reached with the EFF to vote with them on an issue-to-issue basis. Then my question to you would be, was there any backroom arrangements that were made between you and the EFF in relation to city contracts of housing and infrastructure that has now gone sour with you going after Dr. Msola, whom you had hunted to become the city manager of Tshwane? Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yes, sir.
Mayor Alex Smith-McFall, just want to know, have you crunched the numbers? If EFF vote against you on Thursday, will you survive or not? Have you done the math?
Okay.
It's Johnny Sai here for African News Agency. Just like some colors question, I want to inquire your relationship with the EFF, your understanding that where do you think it went wrong? What did you in the first place? Where do you think, within your opinion, where do you think you missed the relationship, so to speak, you went against each other? What happened?
Okay. Hajra?
Hajra from Power 987. Mayor, you spent a lot of time talking about the ANC. 2 years into your term of office, how many arrests or prosecutions have there been? Number two, you did not mention the EFF by name once. Does that mean you are scared of them? And number three, beyond whatever happens on Thursday in the Tshwane City Council, you are the DA's candidate for Premier in the province for the 2019 elections. Given your seemingly horrible working relationship with the EFF and the unlikelihood that the DA is going to win a majority come the elections, like, what's the game plan? Surely you've got to fix your relationship with the EFF if you hope to govern the province in 2019.
All right. Sam, let's start with what you asked. Dr. Msola was not headhunted. Dr. Msola was part of the initial panel or initial people that applied, initial applicants. What we did is that when we couldn't come up to an initial agreement from the first panel, we then expanded. So Dr. Msola had already applied by the time, so there was no headhunting of that. I put it on record, and you can go and ask Dr. Msola. The first time that I ever met Dr. Msola was when he was sitting in front of me when I was interviewing him. That was the first time that I ever met Dr. Msola. So to say that he was headhunted, no, he wasn't headhunted. I was trying to prove that you can get into, or you can put administrators who are not politically aligned, administrators that are supposed to do the job of administration without bringing politics into their work, and leave politicians to deal with politics. That's what I wanted to do, and that is still my intentions in how we run the city of Tshwane. Now, you asking about sour relations, or if there was any deals that were made. I don't do deals that have to do with procurement. I never do those, and will never do that. Now, if there's anything untowards that might have been there, why would I then put an investigation on the table? So we're putting everything on the table so that, you know, whatever has happened can be exposed. But I can tell you that there will never be any deal that will be made where politicians are then saying these are deals that should be done behind closed doors. Because that will go very, very much against what we said we stand against. Because then it means that you have to then manipulate procurement processes in order for you to be able to achieve that particular goal.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. You must remember the reporting that we see on supply chain contracts is after the fact.
Yeah.
In other words, we are nowhere in any capacity involved in specifications, drawing up specifications of contracts, being part of bid adjudication or bid evaluation committees. Not at all. It is done by the administration. All contracts have to be agreed with at the adjudication committee. If it's in excess of 10 million, it goes to the city manager. He signs the appointment letters. We only get a report after the fact of when that contract has been awarded. So that's the only time that we have the opportunity to look not the contract itself, only the principle of what has been sourced. And it is only through information that we are able to ascertain was the process followed correctly, yes or no.
So that is how a clean government runs its affairs. So Mayepa must now explain to you what he meant when he says that any contract above 200,000, the mayor must sign for it, or the mayor must make sure that he sits on that. So they must explain themselves, and they must explain what has been happening all along. Alex, you've asked, have we done the maths? We have done the maths, and I think if there is going to be a vote to remove me, and the ANC and the EFF vote together, they will succeed in that particular motion. If the ANC decides to abstain, because again, you must remember there's two motions. There's the ANC motion, there's the EFF motion. So will they withdraw one and vote for one, or will they then decide that they're going to vote each to their own? So if that is the case, then it will have very different scenarios. The question then becomes when if they succeed in removing me as the city manager through a motion of no confidence, if they agree, then the next thing is, do they want to then put up a candidate? Will the ANC put up a candidate? Will the EFF put up a candidate? Or will they try and nominate somebody from other opposition parties, or the opposition party, which will be the PAC, or they will try to find an alternative? I can tell you this without a shadow of doubt. The DA has assured that they stand by the man that they put in office. So the only man that will emerge as a DA candidate again will be Solly Msimanga. So let me also answer Johnny Sai. I think, Johnny, I don't want to speculate about what went wrong in the relations. I've always prided myself in being a consultative leader. I've always ensured that I'm able to consult with all leaders in terms of what we now need to do. When we're putting a budget together, even the ANC voted with us on our budget, because we consulted them and said, we need to make sure that the people of Tshwane are put at the center of everything that we do. Therefore, if you're going to bring issues, bring the issues, but if it's not talking to what we're trying to do in terms of saving the people, then I don't want to hear it. And this is how they were able to vote with us when we put the budget together. I've always had engagements with the EFF leadership in terms of the plans, in terms of where we are going. And it came by surprise that, when this particular matter came up, then it was a big concern. It is a big concern to me to say that if my name and the administration that I lead is taking flag on a daily basis in the newspaper, and I'm putting things on the table to say, let's clear it once and for all, then there will be a problem in doing that. There's nobody who said Dr. Musula is guilty. Nobody. All we're saying is put everything on the table, let him be vindicated if he's going to be vindicated. And if there's any wrongdoing, let that be found out. So that we don't have another Sunday paper that comes out and say, in addition to this, this is what is happening. In addition to that, this is what is happening. Therefore, the DA-led administration is failing. So that's basically what we said. Let's put everything on the table and make sure that our name as a party doesn't continue to be banished in the manner that it has been banished. So if in me trying to do that is what led to souring of relations, I think it's a bit unfortunate. Which then goes to what Hajra was asking in terms of me not mentioning the EFF. Well, I have mentioned the EFF. I said if they are going to collude with the ANC. So if they're going to collude with the ANC, remember they've been silent in terms of when the investigation has been. That's why I decided to mention the ANC specifically, because they are the ones who've been making the greatest of noise around this particular issue. But again, like a bipolar somebody, they make noise out there and then go into council, do something else, which then tells you that somewhere, somehow, there must be a collision of lies that needs to be exposed. And then, why are they now dilly-dallying about how this thing needs to be dealt with? No, have it in private. No, don't have it in private. Why? If there's a principal matter to say we need to investigate, let's do that. Let's tell the public of Tshwane what is really happening here. And unfortunately, I've had calls, to say that it looks like what is happening here is actually a political gimmick to make sure that it taints your premier candidacy. And I think, the evidence that is now stacking up against them really builds up to that. So you ask about what arrests have been made. We've laid criminal charges. And by the way, we will be laying more criminal charges. And we are hoping that Dr. Mayepa comes into office, because when this building was built, the initiator of that was part of what they did as an advisor to the mayor at the particular point in time. And there's a number of companies that is involved in that we know of, that we're going to be asking some serious questions as to how they managed to get contracts into the city of Tshwane, and how some of the executive of the ANC at a regional level have been milking the system for the longest of time. And he needs to then come with me to the police station to come and lay criminal charges against some of his colleagues. That is a challenge that I'm putting up to him. Fixing the relationships with the EFF. I think I've always had a cordial relationship with the EFF. And if this was the first time that we ever had to, bump heads, where they felt that I didn't consult them. But I said to them, if I didn't consult you, then put up a statement to say that you stand by me in not suspending the city manager, and that you will then be able to follow through up to the point where the city manager is being cleared of any wrongdoing. They're not willing to do that. So I said, if you're not willing to do that, then it means that my name and that of the administration that I leave will continue to take a beating, and I'm not willing to stand for that. I'm willing to put everything on the table and to clear people if they are to be cleared, and then move on from there. The people of Tshwane deserve that. I pride myself in having stood on that principle of ensuring that we can run a transparent and clean system. And that's what we promise the people of Tshwane, and that's what we're going to continue to deliver to the people of Tshwane. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Treasurer for the SABC. Mayor, in terms of your relationship with the city manager, going back to that, in this country we work on a rule of innocent until proven guilty. You have just said it yourself that no one has been, found for any wrongdoing. If that is what you stand by, should the city manager then not be sitting next to you and then you defend him because he's part of your team until you actually have enough evidence that suggests that he should be suspended or he's not fit enough to be in your administration?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So there's also been reports that the DA in Tshwane is actually divided along racial lines. How confident are you that everybody come Thursday, especially the DA, will vote for you to assume your position as mayor?
Okay. Rory?
PM, what do you think why do you think the EFF could not wait for the outcome of the investigation before going publicly? Irregular appointments or the qualifications of some of this job. The EFF eventually said we are not going to comment anymore because the mayor said he will investigate and look into the whole HR process and we will comment after. But why do you think with this matter they could just say, you know what, we want to get rid of you, we're not going to wait for the outcome of the investigation?
Okay. All right. Let's start with the relationship with the city manager. Now, I haven't had any bad blood, or there's no bad blood between me and the city manager. The city manager and my name have been taking a lot of flack relating to this alleged corruption, and this is why we've decided to put it, out there. Now, if there is any allegation, the law is very prescriptive in terms of how you deal with it. It says that if there's a senior manager in the administration, that senior manager be put on suspension pending the outcome of the investigation. So the city manager is actually serving the 7 days in which he is supposed to give us reasons why not to suspend. And I must reiterate again, we haven't said, and we are not here to prosecute anybody. We are here to say, if there's any wrongdoing, let's find it. And if the administration can be cleared out of this, if the city manager specifically can be cleared out of this, then the better. Then we will then reconfirm our position, as we have already said, that we run an effective and clean government. So that is why we had gone the route that we have gone. It's prescribed in law that you have to do that. Sbahle, you ask about the divisions in the DA. As late as yesterday evening, we had a DA caucus, as we normally do every Monday before council. Everybody in the party has pledged their support to say that we will ensure that what we have started will finish together. Whether we go back into the opposition benches, we'll do that together. There's not going to be a division in the party, because we know what we stand for, and it will remain that. We stand for a clean and accountable government. Rory, you ask a very good question. I wish I could give you a straight answer to that. When the EFF marched into my office when we had Mako, they marched in here and demanded that Marita Okam be removed immediately. And we were already acting on that. And Marita was put on leave, and then afterwards, when it was confirmed that there was something wrong, Marita went. And that happened in a very short space of time. So now they say, well, prove that there's something wrong before we can then act. And the question is, how am I going to be able to prove that if we not subject this to investigation? And the only way to subject this to investigation is to make sure that you then take what the law prescribes of you to do, to say, put a senior manager on suspension, deal with the issues, clear him or find him guilty. He's innocent until proven otherwise. His conduct has to be proven, or the conduct of the administration has to be taken through an investigation so that we get to the bottom of it. And that's it. So the ANC now don't have anything to jump up and down about, because they thought that I would do what they normally do. Come up with a commission of inquiry onto a commission of inquiry, try to hide something, try to then say we'll look into the matter and come back to you. I didn't say that. I didn't do that. I took the whole thing and put it on the council table and say, let's go into it. Now, if that is not accountable government, I don't know what is. And anybody who then tries to stop that, the questions must be asked of them then, to come and account.
You didn't really answer my question. My question was, why do you think EFF is jumping the gun and not waiting for the outcome of the investigation in this case?
Well, I think I answered you in the beginning. I said that is a good question, but I think you're asking the wrong person. I think a straight question should be asked of them to say why, on a particular matter you were quick to jump and actually physically walked into a room and demanded somebody to be removed, and on other matter you're saying let's look for evidence. So I think it's a question that is a good question to ask. But at this point in time, I think you're asking the wrong person. I'm not the one who walked into a mayor meeting and demanded somebody be removed. I'm not the one that says to council, produce evidence while the investigation is actually supposed to prove, whether somebody is guilty or not.